Welcome to the Storj Labs Town Hall for Q3 2019. I'm going to start with a forward-looking statement. This document contains forward-looking statements about our product direction. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for our products remains at the sole discretion of Storj Labs. The information herein is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchase decisions. Our topics today: we're going to start off with an executive summary, move on to a product update. Then we'll talk about the tardigrade ecosystem. After that, we'll discuss governance and tokens, and then move on to community. Throughout the presentation, if you have questions that you'd like to have included in the live section of the presentation, you can email us or you can contact us through the link on the video. The email address is ask@storj.io, and we're going to keep that up in the lower right corner of the screen as we go, so you can just send us your questions at any point. Our speakers today are Sean Wilkinson, Founder and Chief Strategy Officer, Ben Golub, Interim CEO and Executive Chairman, Brandon Iglesias, Product Manager, Catherine Johnson, Vice President of Compliance and Human Resources, JT Olio, Vice President of Engineering, John Gleason, Vice President of Operations, and myself, Jocelyn Matthews, Community Manager. We're going to go now to an executive summary from Ben Golub, our Interim CEO and Executive Chairman. Ben?
Thank you. I've been at Storj now for almost a year and a half, and I have never been more excited to give a town hall. This has been an especially momentous quarter for us. As you know, almost 2 years ago, we launched version 2 of our network, and we're very pleased that we were able to launch a petabyte scale network that grew very rapidly and was well suited for decentralized apps. But we knew that what we needed to do was build an exabyte scale network that would deliver enterprise grade performance, enterprise grade quality, and be suitable for a wide range of applications, including those that form up the bulk of the $92 billion cloud storage market. It's been a long effort. We knew that we needed to be S3 compatible. We needed to be highly durable and honestly better than the existing providers in terms of performance and security, and deliver superior economics not only for the end users, but also for our storage node operators, our partners in Storj. Good news is we now have that within our sights. We just entered beta 1 in August and are demonstrating enterprise-grade results already. We've also established a number of production gates that I'll talk to you about in a moment, which discuss exactly what we feel we need to achieve before we go into our beta 2 and then finally into full production. In the meantime, what we're doing has not escaped the notice of customers and partners. We're very excited with the long list of people who are doing proofs of concept with us, who are partnering with us from an open source and a customer perspective. We've continued to grow as a team. We're now 48 people, doing better than planned on finances, one big executive hire that I'll talk about later today, and finally continuing to not only be enterprise grade in terms of our product, but we also think enterprise grade in terms of our governance and transparency. In the upcoming quarter, of course, we are looking to move past our current beta, which is Pioneer 1, into Pioneer 2, and then into production launch, and continue progress on governance, and continue progress on bringing more and more customers online in a test capacity so that they're ready to go when we finally switch the production switch. I'd like to take a moment to talk about our launch gates, because these are very important to us. We've actually set up a set of 15 criteria that apply to each of our release milestones. I've shown a couple of them here, but what you'll see is that we are now, in many cases, not only obviously past the criteria that we needed to go into beta 1, but in many cases we're already at our beta 2 and production metrics. So in terms of durability, we've been maintaining 100% durability. We have lost 0 files and 0 segments since our last major production wipe almost 3 months ago. Our retrievability, that's how often you can get the files on the first time, is now better than 1 in 1,000. It only fails 1 in 1,000 times. And of course, if that fails, then you just have to try again. So that's the equivalent to trying to view your movie on Netflix and they tell you you need to try again. And that's happening 1 in every 1,000 times. Our upload and download times are very impressive to us. In many, many, many cases, we are actually better than the gold standard, which is AWS. And we're particularly proud of the fact that if you look at the distribution of how long it takes to upload and download, because we are a decentralized network, the slowest 5% of the times that we do this is very close to the median time. As you'll notice, for example, downloading, it only takes less than 0.2 seconds longer for our 50 slowest out of 1,000 files to download as it does for the average file to download. So we're very excited. Of course, there are still some gates to be hit, and we'll be talking about those more in a bit. And these apply not only to the metrics that you see here, but also things like network size, economics, certain features and functionality, et cetera. So with that, I'd like to turn it over for more product detail to Brandon Iglesias, who runs product.
Thank you, Ben. Next up, we have Brandon Iglesias. Brandon is our product manager.
Hey, thanks, Jocelyn. So this slide might look a little familiar. As you guys already heard, we're currently in our Pioneer 1 release, which is Beta 1. We're working towards Pioneer 2, and hopefully later this year, we'll be launching Voyager. I'm going to be covering a bit more detail about those releases in the next few slides. But before that, I wanted to share some important features and functionality that we're going to be incorporating into the network in the next 45 days. Storage node operators are going to get a lot of new functionality. We're going to actually be adding new features and things to the storage node dashboard. The storage node dashboard is a graphical user interface that we released last week for node operators to be able to get more information and data about how their node is doing on the network. Aside from that, we're going to be launching support for Windows Home. So this includes a Windows installer and auto updater so that more storage node operators can join the network. And then we're going to be enabling garbage collection for all storage nodes on the network. Garbage collection is just a component that we use to ensure that every last piece that storage nodes are storing, they're getting paid for. And sometimes if your node goes offline momentarily, you may, not receive a delete request. So garbage collection is just an offline function that deletes those pieces. Tardigrade users are also going to get a good deal of new functionality. They're going to be getting the storage token payment integration as well as the credit card payment integration. And they're going to start seeing invoices on their projects. We're not currently charging customers during the beta phase, but we want you to be able to see your usage and what your usage would cost. And then we're going to be making significant performance improvements for both storage nodes and tardigrade users because we're currently working on a replacement for gRPC, which we have called DRPC. This replacement is completely open source and free to use. So if you're interested, we're going to be releasing a blog post about it. But you can also always take a look at our GitHub repository and incorporate it into your project if you'd like. So the release that we're working towards is Pioneer 2, which is our second beta. And this is a particularly important release because this release is going to have all the features and functionality we need before we go into production. So tardigrade users should expect near production level SLAs. They're going to continue to be limited to 25 gigabytes of egress and storage per month, but they're going to be getting a few new features. One of those features is a referral program so they can invite their fellow developers and friends to the network. And then they're also going to be getting multi-part uploads so that you can upload data, specifically upload files that are gigabytes or tens of gigabytes without any issues. Storage node operators should expect business as usual during this time. And they're also going to be receiving a couple of new features. Of those features, graceful exit for storage nodes, which is going to allow storage node operators to leave the network without forfeiting their held amount. And then they're also going to be receiving a storage node notification system, which is going to be built into the Snow dashboard that we released last week as well. So we're really excited about this Snow dashboard. And if you have any ideas or if you want to see any new features on the Snow dashboard, please just submit those ideas on ideas.storj.io so we can get those incorporated. After Pioneer 2, we're going to be working on Voyager, and Voyager is our production launch, which is when we're going to start guaranteeing enterprise-level SLAs, which are 4 nines of availability, 4 nines of retrievability, and 11 nines of durability, so very high standards for our network. We're going to have faster than S3 performance. We're going to have a really intuitive and easy-to-use web interface so you can manage your projects, create new API keys, and pay your invoices. We're going to start giving you credit for the referrals who joined during the beta phases. And then we're going to be releasing new libraries and bindings, which John Gleason is going to speak about in a few moments. Aside from that, storage node operators should expect business as usual, actually more business than usual, because since we're going to be launching production, we expect that the usage, the network utilization on the network is going to be much higher, so you should expect bigger payouts. And then we're also going to be releasing binaries for multiple operating systems, so you don't have to rely on Docker or Windows Home. So just to recap, we're currently in Pioneer 1, we're barreling towards Pioneer 2, and we're making great progress. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be launching our Voyager release, which is our enterprise level production network. Back to Jocelyn.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Next up, we have the tardigrade ecosystem with John Gleason, Vice President of Operations. John?
Thank you, Jocelyn. In the past several town halls, I've spoken about the storage node operators and the status on network payments. We've improved the processes and technology for payments significantly over the last few months, and the feedback we've gotten from the community has been very positive. So for this town hall, I'm going to focus more on what's coming up for developers building apps on the tardigrade network. So we're really excited about the performance, reliability, durability, and growth of the network, and of course all the great features that Brandon has shared. But we're also really excited about what's coming next for the storage ecosystem. We have a number of tools and content for developers and partners building apps on the storage platform coming right around the corner. We've invested a lot of time and energy in developing and validating the user experience for creating and using developer accounts and API keys on the satellites. We've been working on our documentation to help developers build solutions and understand how best to incorporate the tardigrade storage into their applications. And of course, with each release, libuplink has gotten better, more reliable, more performant. And of course, we're also working on building bindings and connectors so that developers have the tools that they need to develop on the platforms of their choice. Last and certainly but not least, we've been continuing to grow our network of partners, including not only open source partner program members, but also technology partners and systems integrators. So I'm going to give you a quick preview of what's coming in the next 90 days. I expect we'll actually be able to do a lot more than what you see here, but these are some of the more exciting things that we're developing between now and the next town hall. So let me start with bindings. So with the V2 network, we had a somewhat limited repertoire of developer tools and documentation. And as we started down the work on the V3 network, we got a number of requests from developers, customers, and especially partners for greater support for a wider range of development platforms. So over the next 90 days, we'll be releasing and updating bindings for Node.js, a library for C, Python, Swift, .NET, Android, Java, and hopefully more with full documentation. And of course, if you don't see the bindings you need, please go to our innovation portal at ideas.storj.io and let us know what bindings you'd like to see. Now, we've also talked a lot in previous town halls about our open source partner program that enables our open source partners to share in the revenue generated when users of their open source software store data on the tardigrade network. We're releasing a connector framework and documentation to make it easy for partners to develop connectors that allow them to store data on our network and allow us to credit the users for that usage and attribute that value and share the revenue with the open source partners. We're also releasing some reference implementations for a number of connectors, including MongoDB, MariaDB, and the others you see on the screen here. And in addition, we will be releasing a reference implementation of an IPFS node integration that uses tardigrade for the network storage on the back end. So we're very excited about this, and we're hoping that this helps developers see the value of the storage network and how easy it is to develop. So while I'm not giving updates necessarily on payouts for storage node operators, that also doesn't mean that we don't have any news for them. In addition to support for Windows Home, as mentioned previously, we're also releasing support for a number of popular network-attached storage platforms, including Western Digital, QNAP, Synology, and also FreeNAS, the open source NAS software. So I think this will also help our network grow and be something our storage node operators are really looking forward to.
Thanks, John. Next up, we have tokens and governance with Ben Golub, our interim CEO and executive chairman. Ben?
Thank you. And now welcome to the least interesting part of our town hall, which is by design. We think that how companies in our space deal with tokens and governance should be straightforward and consistent. As you'll know, over the past several quarters, as we've discussed what we've been doing around tokens and governance, we do want to be enterprise-grade public company quality in terms of how we manage our tokens as well as our product. And that's covered several different facets, including people, communication, cryptographic controls, how we report, how we manage things like insider trading, and how we manage the bulk of our tokens, which are in a long-term time lock. All right, so we're now going to go to our normal token balances and flows report. Again, this is a report that we put out every quarter. As you may know, normally we do our town halls right after the end of each quarter because October happens to be a really, really busy month for us with a lot of interesting announcements and conferences to be at. We've moved this up a little bit in the schedule, so this reflects 2 months rather than our normal 3 months. But you'll note that things look fairly consistent. We again released 75.1 million tokens in our token sale. 0.0000% of that went towards Lamborghinis. We also set up a reserve for the 45.1 million of our SJCX. That was our old counterparty token. Throughout the quarter, we have seen almost no conversion. It's been de minimis, so we're still roughly at 6.8 remaining for conversion. And then we get onto our operating supply. We started the quarter with 43.7 million tokens. You'll see here the various usage, which seem fairly consistent with our previous quarter. We expect that these numbers will increase fairly dramatically as we go into production, both in terms of those that are flowing out to storage node operators, as well as those we hope coming in from customers who choose to buy using storage rather than fiat currency. There is one special item that happened this quarter, which is noted in other. We talked about this last time, which was the 1.5 million storage tokens that went from operating reserves to an 8-quarter rolling time lock for transfer to a service provider. And then with our long-term storage supply, so that means our operating supply went from 43.7 down to 39 million. And then the remaining tokens that were in our long-term lockup, it's the same number, and I can talk about what happened to those in a bit. Again, starting several quarters ago, we divided our long-term reserve into 8 equal-sized tranches, which are set to unlock in successive quarters. Each quarter to date, we have taken the tranche that is about to unlock and relocked it for another 2 years. That's what we did in Q1 and Q2. That is what we will do at the end of this month with our third tranche, and we are going to be doing the same thing with the fourth tranche at the end of Q4. And if you are from Missouri and you'd like to, or Show Me State, or if you're a Reagan fan and you'd like to trust but verify, you can see here all of the addresses and you can verify anything that I've shared with you. And actually, I lied. There is one very exciting part of this section, which is talking about Catherine Johnson. Catherine Johnson was previously on our advisory board, and we felt very fortunate to have somebody of her experience and caliber. She comes with a great deal of experience around compliance, around regulation, around things like know your customer and anti-money laundering. She also brings a great deal of experience in the human resources field. She's led initiatives around diversity and inclusion, and we're very fortunate that she's now joined us as a full-time employee, as our general counsel and our vice president of compliance and human resources. So maybe, Catherine, we can start by you sharing a little bit about your background and how you came to Storj.
Sure. Thanks, Ben. So I was working at Coinbase, where I helped the team scale the compliance function from 2017 to 2019, and then joined Storj as an advisor with the advisory board beginning in February of this year. I got to know the team. I was really impressed with the work at Storj. And of course, when you mentioned this role of general counsel and VP of compliance and HR, I was thrilled at the opportunity.
Thanks, Catherine. So we're back live, and we have the whole crew in here with us. It's time now. This is Jocelyn Matthews. We're going to talk about community update. And I just wanted to say that we've been really listening to what the community has to say and following on from some of the issues that come up, like topics of conversation. And I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the things that we've been up to. So one of the things that we talked about last time around is doing an AMA series, and we are moving forward with that. We're going to be kicking it off with John Gleason, who's our Vice President of Operations, but we also have several of the engineers that have agreed to do Ask Me Anything series, as well as Sean Wilkinson, our founder. So we've got some really cool stuff coming up on the forum with that. The format is just going to be that we'll open for questions for a couple of days, and then whoever the guest is going to come in and answer as many questions as they can in a speed round. So it should be really exciting and fun. Beyond that, we've been doing events on 3 continents. So we have events that we've done and that are coming up in North America, Asia, and Europe. Our founder, Sean Wilkinson, is speaking at DevCon in a couple of weeks. And we have also got speakers at All Things Open. We're going to have a big presence there. It's the biggest developer conference in North America. So we're really excited to say that we're going to have 2 speakers, 3 talks. We're sponsoring a booth, and we are the official sponsors of the app. So we're going to be putting together a surprise for the booth that is tardigrade themed, and we're also going to be demos, and we hope that you'll come over and see a live demo, get your hands on the platform. We also have Korea Blockchain Week coming up, and we have a presence there, and we are also going to have a presence at Open Source Summit Europe. Beyond that, we also encourage the community to reach out for meetup help. So if you're interested in having a speaker or financial sponsorship, let us know. Submit a request, and then and look at each batch. And so the next batch coming up is in October, and we are looking forward to supporting the community in a variety of ways. I also wanted to give a spotlight shout out to Topperdell. Topperdell is a long-time member of our community, and he's been working on a .NET Sharp wrapper for storage. So this library storage allows to upload and retrieve files with distributed and secure cloud storage. There's a sample app, and you can check out his GitHub, and you can see on the screen that we've also got a little GIF of the sample app. So if you would like to see how to upload your QCAD pictures to storage, this is how it is. And then just moving forward to involvement, I just want to give the same shout out that I always do, and let people know that you can contribute to our GitHub. We have a mix of help wanted and good first issues with bounties available. And we're always looking for a diverse mix of cool people to become community leads, event organizers, and volunteers. So please follow us on social. We're on Twitter at Storj Project and also tardigrade_IO. We're going to move now to the Q&A section of the presentation with the storage team. We do have the full team here, but I wanted to give a shout out to Sean Wilkinson, our founder and chief strategy officer, Catherine Johnson, general counsel, VP of compliance and HR, and JT Olio, VP of engineering. They'll be handling a lot of the questions that are coming up. Our first community question. I have a full 2 terabyte storage node, but want to expand and provide more to the network. Of these two, which is the better option and why? First option, obtain a 4 terabyte hard drive, copy the data over, and increase the node. Second, obtain a 2 terabyte hard drive, create a new node on the same IP, run 2 nodes, leaving the first one full. What is the reason you don't recommend option X? I'm going to put this question to JT.
The major thing that you want to keep in mind with your storage node maintenance is downtime, uptime, and the risk that you have with each hard drive failure. Option 2 of these options is definitely better because it reduces the amount of downtime for adding a new hard drive, and it reduces the amount of risk of one of the hard drives or some of the data failing and causing downtime or loss of data for your other node. So it'd be better to have 2 nodes running on the same IP instead of 1 node. We're trying to align node IDs basically to each hard drive first. So for every hard drive you have, you should have 1 node ID.
Great, thanks. Next question. And you can take this, JT, or we could also give it to John Gleason, our Vice President of Operations. Will FreeBSD FreeNAS support be added?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you heard in the previous part of the presentation today, we're adding a number of support options for supply-side partnerships, and of course, FreeBSD FreeNAS is on the list, and so we should expect that out in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Great, thank you. Next question. I want to establish a server with a Supermicro server solution with 300 to 600 terabyte capacity and contribute the whole space to storage. Is this possible? If yes, how? Also, can I be paid in cash? JT?
It is possible. If you'd like to set up, again, going back to the previous question, you should set up a node per hard drive, and you'll need to make sure that you have sufficient bandwidth and auth tokens for each node. If you're interested in running more than 1 to 2 nodes, we're perfectly happy with that, of course. But please reach out to us so that we can help better coordinate getting you those auth tokens so we know better who's running what nodes and that we can better spread data out across our network. You can't currently get paid in cash. You can get paid in storage, which is easily exchanged for fiat and or to buy more storage space on the network.
Great. Okay, next question. I'm going to kick this one over to Sean and to Brandon. Will there be a dashboard to let me easily see my reputation and other stats? Will the install and other tools be made usable for slightly less techie folks who still have the spare hard drive space and network connectivity?
Thank you, Jocelyn. So yeah, I'm so glad that someone asked about this question. As we talked earlier in the town hall, we recently released the Snow dashboard, which allows you to get more information about how your node is doing, its reputation, and what your resource allocations look like. We're also planning on releasing a Windows Home installer wizard, so we can add support for Windows Home so that we can have more storage nodes join the network.
So this is Sean here. So adding a little bit to that. So there are really 2 dashboard projects going on right now. One is the Snowboard, which gets you stats on your specific node, and then another dashboard that my team is working on that gives you a little bit more insight into the public stats of the network. So both of those are in progress, and we hope to, the snowboard was just put out quite recently, so you can go check that out, and that hopefully should address some of your concerns in terms of seeing the stats that you want on your personal node. And very soon we'll also have that public dashboard so you can see some of more of the network stats that you may be curious about.
Great. Oh, Sean, I have one more question for you, which is, when are you going to tell us a joke? Usually it's at the beginning.
I'll tell you at the end.
You'll tell us at the
I'll
end?
leave the best for last.
Okay. All right. So everybody has to listen all the way through to the end. The next question is, are there any plans for Prometheus format metrics from the storage node for monitoring? Let's give this one to JT. He looks eager to hop in. JT?
I'm eager because we already support this. All of our services that we've built with the Storj v3 code base have Prometheus output. Maybe the major question is that we should document it better. But the debug port on all of our services, including storage nodes, export Prometheus format. The amount of metrics and the amount of data that we're sharing is constantly changing. But if you're interested in finding out more about your node, you can configure your node's debug address to listen on a specific port, and it supports the Prometheus format.
Great. I have another question for you. Once the storage node software is fleshed out more, will it be possible to run storage nodes in a high availability configuration for larger snows to further minimize node downtime for operators who have the infrastructure and capability to support that scale instead of running lots of smaller nodes?
Yeah, so a lot of the people that we've been receiving incoming requests for the supply side have been asking for more of these larger capacity installations. And one of the things that we realize right now is we're asking people to do a node per hard drive, and that's pretty tedious to set up for lots of nodes. So we are working to make a better user experience for running large capacity, large operator environments for storage nodes. And so please stay tuned for that as we work on that.
Okay, thanks. So we have the next question for John Gleason and Sean Wilkinson. Will there ever be proper apps for the mass market to use, like those already available on other cloud storage providers? John Gleason?
Yeah, let me start with this one, then I'll kick it over to Sean. So our goal is, of course, to be a object storage platform for that developers will love. And a lot of the work that we're doing right now is making it easier for developers to build applications like Dropbox or any other app that stores data on us. We definitely don't want to compete with our network, but we do want to release some reference applications that make it easier to develop. So let me kick it over to Sean to talk a little bit about what his team is doing in the application space.
Yeah, so my team, we're working on several apps that are using the Storj network and platform. And all of those are open source so that developers looking to integrate with the Storj network can kind of use those as a good reference point. In the future, we also do plan to release more of a listening or page that will give you access to a lot of the apps and code bases that people have developed on this network, so you can use it as a user. But also, if you're a developer, you can also kind of take a look at the code base and see how it's been done. So there's plenty of apps coming down the pipeline that I think a lot of you will be really excited for, to both developers to look at the code and see how it's done, but also as users to be actually the ability to use our platform for various tasks, but use the underlying security and privacy and performance that the Storj network offers that other platforms don't, and use really interesting and cool apps. I'm being a little vague. There's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline, so I encourage you to just kind of watch our forum and our newsletters, and there will definitely be some really cool apps for you to use.
So that gives you a sense of what our positioning is as Storj, but really the best source of proper apps that you'll see coming in the very near future are apps developed by our partners. So partners developing applications to work with a lot of the open source partner projects to help use Storj for database backups and extend those projects and make them more self-sustaining for open source, as well as a lot of mobile apps. And as Sean mentioned, you'll see all of these things in our marketplace when that launches very soon.
Thanks. Yeah, it's actually a really, really exciting time. So let's move forward to the next question. Sometimes people are curious, how many storage node operators are contributing to the network? I think this question has come up before, but the answer is different every time. So Sean?
Yeah, it keeps on growing. So right now we have 2,000 storage node operators on the network as of today. And we want to increase that to 3,000 by our next beta launch gate. So if you're not running a storage node right now, you definitely should go to storj.io and download it and run it and join our network. And right now, as of our last check, we have about 13 petabytes of advertised capacity. So we do have a lot of capacity in the network and really excited about that, but we also want to continue to grow that. So if you're not running it already, you definitely should.
Okay, thanks. I know that you just said we're at 2,000, we're looking to increase to 3,000 before our next beta launch gate. Brandon, do you have any comments about the beta launch gate?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the features that we're working on is the Windows Home support, and we're really excited for more folks to be able to join the network because of that feature that we're building. So if you've been holding out because you run Windows Home on your computer, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to join the network.
Great, that's big news about Windows Home. Next question. How much data is currently stored in the network with and without deduplication and compression? I think that this is a really good question for Ben Golub. Ben?
Great. So just as an introductory comment, when we did our V2 network, we grew to 150 petabytes pretty quickly. When we decided to go to V3, we wanted to take a different approach. And rather than focusing on raw petabytes, we wanted to make sure that we were building an enterprise-grade network where supply and demand stayed in balance. The way that we deal with data on our network is that when a file is uploaded, it's encrypted, it's split into 64 meg segments, and those segments are split up using Reed-Solomon so that it's every file is divided into roughly 80 pieces, of which any 30 can be used to reconstitute it, and each of those 80 pieces goes to a different drive in the network. That means that our expansion factor is about 2.7. So for every gigabyte that a customer stores with us, we end up storing about 2.7 gigabytes on the network. Right now, we're at about a petabyte of data on the network. So we're sort of close to 3 petabytes in terms of total usage on the network. That number, again, is going to scale up fairly rapidly. We've been keeping that moderate until we got to enterprise grade. As you saw earlier, we're now at enterprise grade, so we expect those numbers to grow really quickly as new users come on board and as we push more test data out to the network.
Great, thanks, Ben. Now, next up, we have a short question with a long answer. What is the average price per gigabyte? John Gleason?
Yeah, so during the betas, we're not charging for data. So we're giving users the opportunity to kind of kick the tires on the platform and really see that distributed storage and decentralized storage can perform every bit as well as the traditional cloud storage, but at a much greater efficiency. We haven't published our pricing yet because we're still studying how the network behaves, but we expect that when we do publish pricing as we get closer to production, we'll be somewhere between a third and half cheaper than the public cloud providers. For storage node operators, of course, we are paying them $1.50 per terabyte per month for storage, $20 per terabyte of egress, and $10 per terabyte of repair egress. Overall, we want our nodes to be profitable, and we want running a storage node to be something that's attractive to people who have extra storage. And so as we get closer to production, I think we'll see some interesting things develop, and we'll be publishing our pricing within the next month or so.
Great, thanks. Next, we have a long question with a short answer. My node is configured and working with the tardigrade satellites. As other satellites become available, we have the option to work with them or not. Is it possible as a SNO to have 2 separate nodes in my home for the below? First, current node for Storj Labs tardigrade network only. Second, new second node for other satellites. I would always reject or never request to work with non-tardigrade satellites on my current node. This would help me keep my current trusted node happy and healthy. The second node would be strictly for other satellites, never crossing the 2 nodes. To me, this wouldn't impact my service with Storj Labs tardigrade by having 2 nodes on the same network using the same IP address. I have unlimited 1 gigabyte internet, so I wouldn't be taking resources away from Storj Labs tardigrade network. Thoughts? I'm going to give this one to Brandon.
Thank you, Jocelyn. So this is a great question. recently we published a blog post about why we were removing Kademlia, and this kind of takes is part of that. In the future, you're going to be able to configure your storage node to work with whatever satellites you want. By default, the storage nodes are automatically connected to the tardigrade satellites, but the idea that this person brought up about running 2 nodes connected to different satellites is a great idea.
Great, thanks. Okay, next question. What's the average availability of storage nodes and of data stored? Brandon?
Sure. So according to our storage share terms, the average availability that we're expecting storage node operators to have on the tardigrade network is 99.3%. And then in terms of the data being stored on the network, our SLA, as mentioned earlier in the town hall, is 11 nines of durability. So those are for the tardigrade users storing data.
Great, thank you. Next question. When can those of us with Windows 10 Home run a storage node? Brandon?
Yeah, sure. So as we mentioned earlier in the town hall, our team is currently actively, right at this moment, working on Windows Home support. We expect for this functionality to be delivered within the next 45 days. So please check in on our blog. We're probably going to do a blog post about it and an announcement so we can try and recruit more storage node operators to the network.
Great, thank you. Next question. Do you have any incentive plan for industry partners who can help Storj v3 deployment on distributed devices? We have verified Storj 3 and our latest commercial NAS device. Partnering with Seagate will be launched on November 11th in China. Integrating with Storj v3 and its update could be a native or plug-in feature. John Gleason, would you like to take this one?
Sure. So we're actively working on integrations for a variety of NAS devices. But I think really the question here is about looking for an incentive program for large-scale supply-side partnerships. And so we'll be rolling out our supply-side partnership program within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Of course, if you need more information sooner, you can absolutely reach out to us at partnerships@storj.io, and we'll get back to you and figure out if there's something we can do sooner, or at least give you direction.
Great. Do you want to give that email address again?
Sure, absolutely. It's partnerships@storj.io.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Any plans to pay in US dollars instead of coins? John?
No, we have no plans to pay in US dollars or a US dollar stablecoin. Our focus is really on growing the use of our Storj utility token within the network. We pay in tokens because we can easily pay hundreds and thousands of people in hundreds of countries with just a few clicks. With fiat currency, it's just not possible. And when we're operating in as many as 180 different countries and territories, the token is the most efficient way to do that.
Thank you. Next question. So this is about downtime. So this person says the downtime of 5 hours is quite low for home users. This person had a problem with their ISP. The ISP took a full day to come to their place and fix the internet. They go on to say, I think that with downtime, you should be more flexible since most of us are doing this at home.
Yeah, this is a tough challenge, but honestly, we're building a product that's going to compete with Amazon S3, and so in order to meet those performance requirements, we have to have nodes that are online all the time, that are reliable, that have great available bandwidth. So with our tardigrade satellites, we're working to identify whether downtime is due to an ISP or whether it's due to the operation of the storage node. And as we increase our ability to sort of detect what the issue is, we can really tune the model in terms of the impact on reputation for storage nodes. And so it's an area of focus for us. But in terms of the storage nodes that are available, thankfully, it's not just tardigrade satellites that are available, but across the whole decentralized network, there'll be other community satellites running, and they may have different and varying requirements. And so it provides those nodes an opportunity to work with a different group.
Okay, thank you. Here's a question. I appreciate that each satellite is separate and independent in its own right, but it's also a critical single point of failure for customers using it. How can you assure the potential customers that their chosen satellite will not have downtime? What technical measures will be implemented to guarantee this?
So the major important fact about a satellite is that it's actually a collection of servers. And even though any specific server could go down, a server going down doesn't mean a satellite goes down. One of our major launch gates is that we'll be installing what's called Netflix's Chaos Monkey, which is a service that automatically at random kills servers in your data center. And the point of doing that is to encourage us to make sure that we've built our software to be robust in the case of failure. And so if you can imagine that Amazon or Google or anyone else can run a service with minimal downtime, we'll be able to run a satellite with minimal downtime, even in the face of failure, hardware, collapse, disasters, and so on. And I think Sean would like to add some to this.
Yeah, so right now we're taking, a very iterative approach to the satellites. Like JT described, there is methodologies and architectures that we can use to make that really robust. But as we grow and as we scale out the network, we really want to add additional features and architecture where the satellites under no circumstances are really points of failure. So right now we have something that is quite robust, and we're continuing to make it more robust. But in the future, there's going to be, as we plan out, a lot less reliance on the satellite, a lot more flexibility for the users who are using the satellites to manage their metadata and other things, for the satellites to be a little bit more disposable and again, a little bit more flexible on the user side. So there's a lot of exciting things that we're working on now to make that better, but there's also a lot of things that we're working on in the future to, again, make that more robust. So if you would like to jump into our forum, I would highly recommend talking about it there, and we can talk a little bit more about the specific architectures that we're really looking at that will really make the satellites more robust and better.
Great, thanks. Okay, so this next person essentially states a situation, makes a recommendation, and then has a closing comment with that has a suggestion. So their last payout in mid-September dropped from 140 Storj to 40 Storj for their node. That equals about $7 US. They go on to say this is unsustainable and unattractive for a node operator, as even with the payout of the held back amount after 15 months, the income just breaks even, since the costs associated with running a 4 terabyte storage node start from $20 a month. I've had around 500 gigabytes bandwidth used in an entire month, although I could contribute 150 terabytes of bandwidth. For more clarification, you should provide a section on your website with live stats all on one page, such as the current node version, amount of data used and offered in total, number of nodes, and map earnings for a 1 terabyte storage node on average. The average data should be included in a revenue calculator as default settings on the storage node operator page. There's no information about the amount of tokens held back as with the earnings estimator, and that's currently not linked to the node operator page. The new GUI dashboard for Snows does not tell the held back amount of tokens, takes too long to sync files between two destinations. Moving a storage node must get easier with inbuilt tools, not third-party tools that can destroy files and disqualify the operator. When do you plan to increase rewards depending on the node's geolocation to encourage people in regions with higher network costs, such as South America, Africa, or India, to run a storage node? Question for John Gleason.
Yes, this is a good lot of questions for me. So let me try and unpack this into just a couple of points here. So the first one is that, in terms of node profitability, initially we're still in a beta, and we're still on track kind of to grow the network. And so right now it's probably not representative of what the network could achieve at scale in terms of what the earnings can be. But to that point, I think what we're trying to target right now is mostly people who have existing capacity and they want to monetize that existing capacity, as opposed to either purchasing capacity and trying to resell it or do different models like that. Now, it's great to see that there's the enormous amount of bandwidth available, because over time, as the network becomes more active and as we get more production data on the network, we'll be able to take a lot more advantage of the individual storage nodes. And our expectation is that nodes that have that high amount of bandwidth available will earn more. So let me take the second part here about statistics and the available information on storage nodes. So there's a couple things to unpack here. Initially, one of those things is that, as Sean mentioned earlier, in addition to the storage node operator dashboard that we just released, we will also be releasing a dashboard that gives you a greater view, sort of the broad network as a whole, and the sort of how the network operates. I think it's totally reasonable to request sort of average earnings for sort of the typical footprint storage node, and so we'll incorporate that into the requirements. Of course, we can't guarantee that that'll be out there in the first release, but it's certainly a great requirement. For people with more ideas like that, we do encourage people to go to our ideas portal at ideas.storj.io, where you can give us suggestions for product ideas, and those go directly to our product management group. And Brandon, of course, manages those things and incorporates them as appropriate into the roadmap. So a couple more pieces here about the held amount. So held amount will be incorporated into the storage node dashboard as well. We've got a first release that gives a lot of information to help people optimize how their node works in terms of reputation, uptime, and those sorts of statistics. But we'll continue to make improvements to that over time. And then lastly, in terms of new capabilities, actually second to lastly, I should say, new capabilities around moving data around. Again, those are great ideas for the storage ideas portal. In terms of migrating data around, I think JT gave some great recommendations in terms of how to add capacity to your storage node without impacting uptime or reliability. The last piece here about geographies. So adding geo-targeting to storage nodes is a feature that will be post-production. And certainly as we add in that feature, we'll be wanting to rapidly expand into a number of geographic areas. We encourage people to run storage nodes wherever they can today. But then I expect as we move forward with that capability and we find areas where there's more attractive demand, we'll be using tools like surge pricing as we're doing today to help grow those markets. Hopefully that covered all of those questions and answered everything that user wanted to know.
Great, thank you, John. Let's go to the next question. And this person wants to get their hands on it. So I'm curious about Storj's functionality. If I'm wanting to migrate a website to be hosted on Storj, is the process easy? What if my site is hosted or structured on a site such as Squarespace? Is there a way to migrate the layout, images, etc. as a one-step process while still maintaining updating functionality but saving hosting costs? Also, what would be the finality of my payments for web hosting on Storj and how quick? Do all my website transactions require settlement on the Ethereum chain? John Gleason, would you like to take this one?
Sure. I think this goes back to a previous question about, what the goal of Storj is and the apps being built on the Storj platform. Our goal is to be a S3 compatible drop-in replacement object storage platform, right? So we are infrastructure as a service. I would hope that we would have a partner who would build an application to help people host websites at some point in time on our network. But in terms of what we are trying to be, we would be the storage platform for something like a Squarespace to store those assets that are ultimately served up to someone who would visit a website. And so in terms of that application, again, we try to be easy for developers to use, and not only in terms of developer tools, but also in payment. And so we accept dollars, we accept storage tokens, and those are, of course, billed on a monthly basis. So just to sort of wrap it all up, we're a platform for developers to build applications like this, not necessarily to provide those direct application services, and we make it easier for developers to build those services and, of course, pay for the storage.
Okay, thank you. This, I believe, is the last question that we had received in advance of the presentation day. So after this, we're going to move to live questions that have been coming in as we've been talking. This community question is in 4 parts. First, we have developers on standby waiting for development access so we can have solutions ready by tardigrade launch. Yet it doesn't appear that any development access has been provided in months. Can you please give an expected date of when developer access will be provided? Part 2, does the V3 network as of today host any client data, or is it all still test data? Part 3, it would appear that quality of internet service has not yet been taken into account for node priority and reputation. Can we expect to see these elements added to the V3 network before launch? And finally, we're enthused at the level of quality and detail you're putting into the V3 network. Are there any ways we can more closely assist with the V3 network development team?
Okay, so I see I'm getting this one again. I've gotten all the multi-part questions, by the way, all the long ones. Whew. All right, let's take it from the top. Okay, so In terms of developers on standby, you know, it's been a long road developing V3. We're really proud of where we are. But during that time frame, we stacked up a wait list of 11,000 developers, and so we are working our way through that wait list. But you know, it's one of those things where we have to work through the wait list in a way that's healthy for our network. And so we're getting through the list as quickly as we can. The more storage node operators we get, the stronger and healthier the network becomes, the more people we can invite on. So I would say stay tuned. We're really blazing through it right now, and I would expect that we'll be through the wait list fairly soon. But again, we're doing it at a metered pace that's healthy for the network. So second, in terms of what data is on the network. So again, we're in beta. We're not charging for the data, but we do have a number of partners and customers who are building out POCs and storing actual data on the network and seeing, you know, the suitability and comparing it to the current performance and value that they're getting from other networks. And so there's a significant amount of test data, and we are using that to sort of bootstrap the network and reward storage nodes who are joining and helping us grow the network before we have production data. But again, there's a fair amount of actual real customer data as well. In terms of the third question there, the quality of internet service, actually we do take into account the quality of internet service, and that is represented in a number of different ways in the statistical model for storage node reputation. So response time and the ability to deliver successfully pieces of files for download. These are aspects that we're all tracking. And if you look at the blog posting, and I believe it's called Reputation Matters, you can search for that on our blog. That gives you sort of the full depth and breadth of the number of elements that we take into account when tracking the statistical model for storage node reputation. And so I think we'll be able to expose more of those as we move forward. But right now we're trying to get the ones that are most important in front of you with the Snow dashboard. And we'll be increasing the amount of information there as needed, basically to make sure that storage nodes are performing as well as they can. And then lastly, thank you for being enthusiastic about the quality and detail of the V3 network, because we're pretty happy with it too. And there are ways that you can work more closely with us to help us with the V3 development. So please go to our GitHub repo and look at the open issues and see if there are areas you can help. And of course, you know, we've gotten some great community submissions from, for example, Topper Dell and the .NET bindings. We'd love to get more bindings and more integration support and more tooling, because the more kits that we have to develop, the more things that we can develop, and the faster our ecosystem will grow. And as the ecosystem grows faster, the amount of data on storage nodes and the storage network will grow faster and be more profitable for those storage node operators.
Thanks. And yeah, extra shout out to Topper Dell again. One thing about having community members work with our development team is we really enjoy it, and we really enjoy the conversations that we have with community members. We really enjoy seeing what they do with what we've done, and we're looking to get as many of those kinds of interactions as possible. So if you do have ideas, you know, you can contact us, you can talk to us in the forum, and you can also make suggestions on ideas on the ideas portal. So Brandon, would you like to give the link for the ideas portal again?
Yeah, it's ideas@storj.io.
Thank you. We love that. Okay, so this is the end of our pre-collected questions. It is now time for our founder, Sean, to give us the traditional storage joke before we move on.
Boy, okay. So I know this band. They're called 123 Megabytes, but they haven't booked any gigs yet.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that was the comedy break. Next, we're going to move on to a slightly more serious question, which is, we had someone from the community asking, what are you doing about the lack of regulatory clarity in crypto? And this is a fantastic opportunity for us to get a really solid answer from Catherine Johnson, our General Counsel and VP of Compliance and HR. I'm going to turn the mic over to Catherine. Here you go.
Hi, thanks for that question. So as many of you know, there have been a lot of developments recently in this space. And, you know, while there are a lot of changes and a lot of things happening and people starting to talk more about blockchain and crypto, say, for example, with the congressional hearings this summer around Facebook and in this area generally, and recent events with KIC and the SEC case. Unfortunately, it doesn't still give us a ton of regulatory clarity or a reliable framework in which to work. I know that this impacts some other companies in this industry more than it does us, but it's still important to follow the developments. One of the reasons the developments will have less of an impact on us is because our token is securely a utility token and not a security. And that's one of the questions that a lot of people are asking in this area, people who have had ICOs. Will their token be viewed as a security or a utility? Now, fortunately for us, when we had our token sale, it's clear that ours was a utility, not a security. We had a working product, and we also rolled out that token sale following best practices using a Big Four advisory firm and also a leading national law firm to make sure that we were following best practices. In addition to that, while we follow, what's happening in the industry, we're also confident that that we're following best practices, including token and corporate governance, as well as sound treasury management. For example, following our 2017 token sale, we converted the bulk of our proceeds to cash and used that to build our platform and business. This, along with the disciplined plan for converting converting proceeds to cash to build our platform has been, given us confidence that, that we won't be directly impacted by some of these developments, even though we watch them unfold.
Great. Thank you for that comprehensive answer. It was really, really wonderful. Let's go to the next question, which is it expected that the ratio between storage and transfer will remain what they are now? In other words, it appears transfer bandwidth is the key and that storage doesn't get maxed out. JT, would you like to take this question?
Sure. Thanks. It's true that bandwidth we expect to be our main limiting factor. And so while the ratio will probably change as we move from archival to general storage to content delivery down the road, the ratio of storage to bandwidth, we do expect that bandwidth is our most precious resource. And I think John has more to add to this.
Yeah, I think as JT mentioned, as we're able to grow the network and achieve those higher value use cases, those higher value use cases will also mean greater earnings for storage node operators because, again, you make more money with the egress bandwidth than you do with the storage, of course. And our goal is to really use that bandwidth to the highest possible use.
Wonderful. Thank you. So the next question is, I keep getting email saying you want more nodes, but the system won't allow me to add any. Brandon, would you like to speak about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely are looking for more nodes to join the network. And if you are getting that error, I think the best thing to do is to visit storj.io and get another authorization token so you could set up another storage node. If you have any issues getting an authorization token, you could always contact our support team or visit our forum. But yeah, every single node needs another authorization token, and we are giving those authorization tokens out. So just visit our website.
Hey, thanks. Next question. I started contributing drives to Storj a year or so ago, and my platform hasn't changed. Is there something I should be doing to upgrade with you?
I'll take this one again, Jocelyn. So the main thing that you need to do as a storage node operator is to ensure that your storage node is up to date in terms of the software that you're running. We do have really easy to set up automatic updates if you're using the Docker container. It's called Watchtower, and our documentation site has a bunch of information on how you could do that, so you don't even have to worry about it. But yeah, just making sure that your Docker container is up to date, or setting up your Docker container with Watchtower to ensure that your node is up to date and that you're contributing to the network. In terms of hardware, we don't expect you to buy any specific hardware. You should just continue to use the hardware that you've been contributing for over a year.
Okay, and then what if they're on V2?
Yeah, so we're still operating the V2 network. And so storage node operators are still being paid for the storage and bandwidth that they provide there. But the great thing is, as we transition to V3, we will be announcing a cutover And for storage node operators on V2, we'll be communicating that we want them to stop using V2 and start using V3. But we definitely want to keep V2 operational for the customers that are there. And we are already actively working to help those customers with their migrations from V2 to V3. And so stay tuned for the time frame in which we'll want to do that complete cutover. It's coming soon, but we're not there yet.
Okay, thanks. So next question. How much terabytes can we sell? Because I have 100 terabytes and 100 gigabytes internet link. It's a dedicated server. So they're just asking about what the possibilities are for sales and payouts, it looks like.
Got it. So let me break this down to a couple of parts here. First of all, you can use our storage node estimator. We have a calculator that sort of gives you a rough estimate of how much you can earn, just kind of given a certain level of network usage and usability. But again, looking at what you're suggesting here with the actual number of terabytes, it's a pretty big node. And so this might be one of those things where you may want to reach out to partnerships at storj.io as we're starting to evolve both the services, the capabilities, and the incentive model for large scale operators. So stay tuned for that and feel free to reach out. And then in terms of how the payments are tracked and processed, all of our payment transactions are processed on the Ethereum network. So it's the Storj token is an ERC20 compatible token. So all of our payments are available on the public blockchain.
Okay, thank you. We have some more payment questions, and I'm going to turn this to John Gleason, but other people here are also welcome to chime in if you have more comments to add. So I've got a two-part question. Where can we see the amount of storage inflows, aka users purchasing storage for use? And second part, how's the fiat payment dealt with? How is the payment processed, and what does the back end look like? So this leads off of your last answer, John Gleason.
So in terms of the amount of storage inflows, the best place to see that is really with our quarterly token flows report, because with the number of different users who could potentially be paying, it's a little difficult to sort of discern which transactions are which on the storage network, but we are as transparent as we possibly can be in terms of how we report that data. In terms of fiat payments, on a satellite for developers who wish to store data on the platform, we accept credit cards. We use Stripe on the back end. We use coin payments to accept storage token. And basically the payments processed are relatively straightforward. If you register for an account on the satellite and you go check out, you can see what our payment processing screens look like. But it's as easy as you would see on any other infrastructure as a service site where you want to buy resources. And of course, as we said a minute ago, all the transactions are on Ethereum. So you can use CoinMarketCap to see the different exchanges on which you can purchase or sell storage token, depending on whether you want to use it to buy storage or you're a storage node operator who has received storage token who doesn't need to necessarily store data. So yeah, stay tuned for the next beta and get a developer account. You can see it for yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. Any update on node operator onboarding timelines? Let's give this one to Brandon Iglesias.
Yeah, so we're definitely onboarding new storage node operators to meet our launch gates, as Ben mentioned earlier. If you're interested in joining the network, the best thing to do is to visit storj.io and get an authorization token, or take a look at our documentation site at documentation.storj.io. The other thing that I want to point out here is that we're going to be adding support for Windows Home in the next 45 days. So if you are a Windows Home user, please stay tuned for that announcement.
Great, thank you. Next up, what is the current status and future plans of the V2 storage network? I run 3 nodes and they appear to be stagnant. John Gleason?
Yeah, so with the V2 network, we still do want to keep it active, and we're still processing payments on the V2 network. We're thinking about doing some things maybe to reward the storage node operators who have been very stable for us and have helped keep the V2 network operational as we approach V3. So maybe stay tuned for what we can do about that. But in terms of the actual network size, our focus right now is really on V3 and getting that ready as quickly as possible to grow. So thank you for keeping the V2 network going and operating those nodes, and stay tuned for more announcements about those and also the shift to V3.
Okay, thank you. I have a question now for Brandon Iglesias, our product manager. Brandon, are there any plans for a unified status dashboard for storage nodes?
Yeah, so we announced the Snow dashboard last week. It was launched, pushed into production. And the Snow dashboard gives you a bunch of awesome information about how your node is doing on the network in relation to each of the satellites that it's connected to. So it tells you your information about your node's reputation, information about your node's bandwidth and disk utilization. And we plan on enhancing the Snow dashboard a lot more in the future. It's probably the feature that I've been most excited for the last few weeks because it just gives our storage node operators so much more control over their nodes. So if you have ideas about things that you'd like to see on the Snow dashboard, please visit ideas.storj.io and submit those so we could get those added to our product development roadmap and hopefully make the storage nodes more empowered. So yeah.
Thanks. Okay, as long as I have you here, here's another question. Out of the current 2,000 storage nodes, how are the storage nodes doing to meet the expected percentage?
So we're still tuning our system, but the storage nodes have actually been performing much better than we originally anticipated. Our network is architected in a way that storage, like we are accounting for bad storage nodes. So it's not really a problem if storage nodes misbehave or if they happen to go offline because our network is tolerable in that aspect. But in terms of the storage nodes that are currently on the network, we're so grateful because they have been doing fantastic, amazing uptime, amazing reputations have been on for all of the storage node or the majority of the storage nodes on the network. So, so far the nodes are behaving and contributing in a really impactful way on the network.
Great. That's really good news. Thank you. Next question, I'm going to ask JT Olio, Vice President of Engineering. JT, is it practical, or do you know of customers that are already storing point-in-time backups of their live production relational database on the network?
So, of course, we don't actually know what our customers are storing with us due to the end-to-end encryption. But we've also had no volunteered reports that people are doing this. That said, we've just begun a project to actually start doing this ourselves. I certainly store some of my data on storage, and our DevOps team has just begun a project where soon we'll be storing our backups in storage directly. We support backups for a bunch of different types of database systems. Of course, our wonderful partners, Mongo, Influx, Maria, so on. Any type of backup, we have a number of connectors that I'll let John talk about right now.
Sure. Just as we mentioned in the town hall portion of this, over the next 90 days, we have a number of connectors coming online, and we're working with a number of the open source projects to make those easier to use for people because you've identified a great use case for us storing snapshots of databases, right? Because it's every bit as durable, it's faster on upload and download, but it's much more cost effective. And of course, the client side encryption, frankly, makes it much more private and much more secure.
Okay, thank you. So here's the next question. I'm going to give this one to Catherine Johnson. This person just wants to know, how can I join the beta? Let me turn the mic over to you.
Great, thank you. So to join the beta as a storage node operator, just visit storj.io. There's a link there to sign up as a SNO in the upper right-hand corner. And to join the beta as a developer storing data on the network, we're still working from a wait list, and you'll need to join it to get access. So just visit tardigrade.io/waitlist, and we're going to be increasing the number of daily invites for developers in the next few months.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question. I have a Synology NAS. Will there be an app released for the DSM so I won't have to use Docker on Synology? I have 8 terabyte drives with 12 CPU core servers, and I'm running 11 nodes currently on the same IP. I'm able to add more servers, but I add more nodes on the storage network for that same reason, but you keep asking for nodes. Let's see who I can give this to. I think this is a John Gleason question. John's our Vice President of Operations. John?
Yeah, so we are, as mentioned in the first part of this program, adding native support for Synology along with Western Digital, QNAP, and FreeNAS. But I think the other aspect here is that if you have a single NAS, the footprint that we're really looking for is one storage node per hard drive, because running more storage nodes against the same underlying set of storage, it's really increasing and stacking your risk. Whereas what we're really using the software for is to sort of manage that redundancy and reliability. So that being said, if you have a large amount of storage and high performant hardware, our program for more of the industrial storage node operators be coming out soon. And so stay tuned for that. And Sean, I think you want some information you want to add?
Yeah, so actually I've been playing around with the QNAP, and we have some other people on our team that are playing with Synology. So it's very much an active project right now. You know, it might happen in multiple stages. You know, one, just easier instructions on how to get it running on those types of devices. And as John mentioned, you kind of want to run it one node per hard drive on some of those devices. But there's definitely interest on our side for making that process a lot easier on those specific devices. So it is in progress, and we're really excited about that. But right now, we're still working on and experimenting with those devices.
Thank you. Next question, will V2 to V3 migrate on its own? I created a node earlier this month and haven't been able to find when payments are done. Is this monthly? John Gleason.
Okay, so let me break that into two things. So with the V2 to V3 migration, there'll be sort of two paths there. The first one is for developers who build applications that have data on V2. We'll provide some information in terms of how to sort of move your data from one to the other. But because of the client-side encryption, we don't have an easy way to do a straight migration. And there's enough differences between the platform. But if you have a lot of data on V2 and you want assistance in moving that, we can certainly help you make that process easier. On the storage node side, for storage nodes operating V2 nodes, it's an entirely different set of software. And so when we are ready for nodes to transition out of V2 and start operating V3 nodes, you'd simply wind down your V2 node and start running the V3 node. There isn't really a transition of the way pieces are stored on V2. It's substantially different from V3. It is a complete rebuild from the ground up, and it's the difference in talking about petabyte scale to exabyte scale doesn't even begin to describe the differences.
Thank you. Next question, should Snow update alpha key to beta on Docker run string?
So I would say no. The best thing to do is actually visit our documentation site. Documentation.storj.io gives you the exact commands that you should be running as a storage node operator to ensure that your node is operating properly.
Great, thanks. Next question, what's the cost on storage for each retrieval? John?
So I think this is trying to get at what our public pricing is for egress bandwidth. And as we mentioned earlier, we're not quite ready to announce our public pricing, but we have talked about is what we pay storage nodes for retrieval. And from a cost perspective, we do pay storage nodes $20 per terabyte for egress bandwidth.
Okay, and you can refer to that as well. So next question, what is the time frame for having a simple installer for low-tech storage node operators? For example, a .exe for Windows users. Brandon?
So our Windows Home support is coming in the next 45 days. So that's going to be a really easy installer. It's just a wizard that's going to walk you through the steps of setting up your storage node. We also have features in our pipeline that are things like NAT traversal, so you don't have to set up port forwarding. And then eventually, after we finish those two sets of features, we're going to be releasing binaries for all operating systems so that you don't have to rely on Docker. So we have a lot of really exciting stuff coming in the future, and these are going to be easier setups for storage node operators who are not super tech savvy.
Great. I have another question for someone who is eager to become a storage node operator. They're saying, is there a page I'm missing on storj.io to become a storage node operator? All I see there is the sign up for early access page, and I submitted my information to that form some time ago. Brandon?
Yeah, so that is the correct form that you want to be visiting. If you visit our homepage, right in the middle of the homepage, there's a little button that says node operator, and then that takes you to storj.io/sign node operator. So that's our sign up form. We do send out authorization tokens on a weekly basis. And if you haven't received an authorization token, it might just be in between us sending out batches. So
it's also worthwhile to have people check their spam folders just to make sure you may actually already have it in your spam box.
Great point. Thank you. Next question. How are other satellites, by which I think they mean non-tardigrade satellites, going to be marketed to the SNOs? Is there going to be a marketplace or some other design?
So there's sort of two aspects to that. One is for community satellites. I think largely the role there is for community satellites to be able to market their own services depending on what they're offering. We will provide a path for community-operated satellites to join the tardigrade network. So the tardigrade network, again, is the brand behind which we're operating storage-run satellites, and we're working with our demand partners to run data and bandwidth through those satellites. In terms of a marketplace, as we bring tardigrade partners online, they'll certainly be listed in our marketplace. And community satellites are discoverable by storage nodes. And let me kick it over to Brandon just to talk a little bit more about that process.
Yeah, so we do have a feature in our pipeline that is going to allow storage node operators to subscribe to lists of satellites that are put out by community team members. So if we have someone in our community who trusts a few different satellites that are not tardigrade satellites, storage node operators will be able to subscribe to that person's list and then start doing business with those other satellites as well. So there is definitely going to be a route for storage node operators to do business with more than just tardigrade satellites as they choose to. And yeah, ultimately what we're expecting is that a lot of storage node operators do business with more than just tardigrade satellites, and it creates a marketplace for people to charge and pay different rates.
Great. While we're on that topic, we had a question from one person who wanted to know how to become a satellite operator.
So we'll be rolling out a satellite operator plan after we've completed the rollout of our commercial storage node operator program. So we've got a little bit more tooling to do to make it easier to run a satellite, and there's a few more things in the pipeline that will help third parties run scalable satellites, but it's definitely on a roadmap of things to do.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question coming up for JT, our Vice President of Engineering. JT, someone's saying that we should, let's see here, you should provide more clear insights regarding IP filtering and more snows under the same IP. Is it desirable or not?
So there's two different sides to this question. Is it desirable from the perspective of having more diverse storage? No, we want more nodes across more geographic locations so that we have better durability and better resiliency across geographies. But in terms of a specific storage node operator, if you're a specific storage node operator, you only have a specific geography that you're working in, or maybe a handful, but one person is unlikely to be worldwide. So if you want to add more capacity, the only way you can do it is to add it in a way in which it is controlled by you in a limited number of geographies. And so we want to encourage specific storage node operators to add more capacity that they can, or the most capacity that they can to our network. We want to make sure that they do that with us by communicating through our sign up form, our wait list, and make sure that they're getting the right number of auth tokens and that we know who is managing what storage nodes. But all that said, once we get you an auth token for your storage node, there shouldn't be any reason not to add more capacity behind a specific IP. It just means that our system might not select your nodes as frequently relative to each other and to other nodes because the system at a high level is trying to distribute the data across a number of different geographies.
Okay, thanks, JT. I have a question that I'm going to give to Brandon Iglesias, the product manager here. And the question is, how do you plan to send updates for users about changes in documentation?
So there's two sets of users. There's the storage node operators and then the clients who are using the tardigrade satellites. The storage node operators should already be receiving emails about software updates so that they can make sure that they update their node. In terms of documentation, we are backwards compatible at this point, so you shouldn't necessarily have to change your command or anything like that. But if there are any major changes that you need to make as a storage node operator, you will definitely be updated via email. And in the future, one of the features that we're going to be adding to the Snow dashboard is actually a notification center so that satellite operators can notify the storage node operators who they do business with of important changes. The other side of the coin is how are we going to update our tardigrade users? And our tardigrade users are going to be receiving email updates about new documentation, new features and functionality that has been added to the network, and then also software updates that they need to make on their side.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move forward to the final question now. And the final question is about satellites. So I'm actively looking at 4 satellites now on the Storj dashboard. Are there actually more satellites running now? same question. When are we going to be able to be a satellite node and select the node? I think, Brandon, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there are 4 satellites. We operate 3 of the satellites, and then there is someone else who operates the fourth satellite that is currently on the whitelist. As a storage node operator, you can already edit your whitelist and update it to do whatever, update it to add whatever satellites you'd like. I am not currently aware of any other community ran satellites, but we do have a number of partners that we're currently working with. John Gleason can probably touch on this, that are setting up tardigrade satellites.
So we will be rolling out our program, and what we're doing today is working with some close partners who've indicated that they want to help us sort of iron out the process of third parties running satellites successfully. And so you won't necessarily see those on the whitelist today, but we are developing those satellites for production use. And so over the next quarter or two, I think what you'll start to see is more satellites pop up in the network as it becomes easier to run those satellites. And then, as Brandon hinted at earlier, as we roll out more capabilities in terms of making it easier for storage nodes to work with more satellites from a whitelist perspective, you'll get updates on that through the emails that we send out to be able to do business with more satellites.
And just one more thing I'd like to add. This is open source software, so you can already go and set up your own satellite if you'd like to start messing around and see how it operates. So please just visit our GitHub repository if you want to take a look at that.
And if you do want to be a commercial storage node operator, of course, please send an email to partnerships@storj.io. That's partnerships@storj.io. And just let us know what it is that you want to do, and we'll be in touch.
Great, thank you. I want to say thank you to all of our speakers today, and thank you to all of our listeners. Signing off, I would also like to urge everybody listening to get involved. So you can contribute to our GitHub. This is the same slide as before. You can go to our GitHub. We have a mix of help wanted and good first issues with bounties available. Like I said before, we're always looking for cool people to get more involved with the forum, to run meetups that are storage themed, to volunteer, to contribute to the code base. And you can follow us on Twitter @StorjProject and tardigrade_.io. Thank you so much to the community. We are just ever thankful and grateful for your contributions and your participation and your activity and your support. We're going to be holding the next town hall in Q1 of 2020. So until then, thank you and goodbye.